You know, there's something fascinating that Napoleon Bonaparte once said that cuts right to the heart of human nature. Picture this: the most powerful man in Europe, someone who conquered nations and rewrote the map of the world, sitting alone in his study, writing these words: "Great men are meteors, destined to burn themselves out to light the earth." But here's what he didn't write in his memoirs: the crushing weight of being misunderstood by everyone around him. Think about it for a second. When you're watching this video right now, you're probably someone who feels different, aren't you? Maybe you've got big dreams, unconventional ideas, or you see the world in ways that others just don't get. And if that's you, then Napoleon's hidden struggle is going to hit you like a lightning bolt. You see, Napoleon didn't just conquer Europe, he conquered the psychology of greatness. And what he discovered was terrifying. The higher you climb, the more alone you become. Not because you want to be alone, but because society has this invisible mechanism that pushes exceptional people to the margins. It's like there's this unwritten rule that says, be special, but not too special. Stand out, but don't make us uncomfortable. Here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. This isn't just about Napoleon. This is happening to you right now, today, in 2025. Every time you have a brilliant idea in a meeting and watch people's eyes glaze over. Every time you suggest something innovative and get that polite smile that really means sit down and be quiet. Every time you feel like you're speaking a different language than everyone else in the room. Napoleon called it the curse of the eagle, soaring so high that the ground becomes invisible, but also becoming a target for every hunter with a rifle. The French court whispered about him behind closed doors. His own generals plotted against him. His family used him for their own advancement while secretly resenting his success. Sound familiar? But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something Napoleon figured out that most people never do. The rejection isn't really about you, it's about them. When people encounter greatness, it forces them to confront their own mediocrity. And that's uncomfortable. So instead of rising to meet that challenge, they do something much easier. They tear you down, quietly, subtly, through what I call silent rejection. You've experienced this, haven't you? That moment when you realize that your enthusiasm makes people uncomfortable, when your ambition is labeled as arrogance, when your vision is dismissed as unrealistic, when your success is attributed to luck rather than hard work and talent. That's silent rejection, and it's the price of greatness in any era. Napoleon understood this better than anyone. He wrote in his private letters about the conspiracy of the ordinary, how average people band together, unconsciously, to maintain the status quo. They don't necessarily hate you personally. They hate what you represent. The possibility that they could be more than they are, but choose not to be. Now, let me tell you exactly how this silent rejection works, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Napoleon documented this phenomenon with military precision. And what he found was that great men don't face loud, obvious rejection. They face something far more insidious. Think about the last time you shared a big idea with someone. Did they tell you it was stupid? Probably not. Instead, they probably said something like, "That's interesting," followed by immediate subject change. Or maybe they said, "You should be more realistic," with that condescending tone that makes your skin crawl. That's silent rejection, and it's designed to kill your spirit without the rejecter having to take responsibility for it. Napoleon called these people the dream killers, and he identified their tactics with surgical precision. First, there's the polite dismissal. They listen to your ideas with fake interest, nod along, and then do absolutely nothing to support or encourage you. Second, there's the concern trolling. They express worry about your unrealistic expectations or warn you about getting your hopes up. Third, there's the social isolation. They gradually exclude you from conversations, decisions, and opportunities. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence reminds them of their own limitations. You've seen this, haven't you? Maybe it's happening to you right now. You walk into a room, and conversations stop. People become uncomfortable when you talk about your goals. Your achievements are met with lukewarm congratulations that feel more like condolences. Your failures, on the other hand, are met with barely concealed satisfaction and an "I told you so" attitude. Here's what Napoleon realized that changed everything for him. This isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. Society is designed to maintain equilibrium. When someone disrupts that equilibrium by being exceptional, the system pushes back, not through laws or official policies, but through social pressure, cultural norms. and the collective unconscious desire to keep everyone at the same level. But here's the part that's going to make you angry, and it should make you angry. The same people who engage in silent rejection will be the first to celebrate you once you've achieved undeniable success. Napoleon saw this with his marshals, his courtiers, even his own brothers. When he was struggling to establish himself, they whispered about his delusions of grandeur. When he became emperor, suddenly they were his most loyal supporters. This is what I call the retroactive validation syndrome. People love to support winners, but they hate to support future winners. Why? Because supporting someone on their way up requires faith, courage, and the willingness to be wrong. It's much easier to wait until success is obvious, and then claim you always believed in them. The psychological mechanism behind this is fascinating and cruel. When you're around someone who's genuinely exceptional, it triggers what psychologists call comparison threat. Your achievements don't just make them feel inferior, they make them question their entire life philosophy. If you can achieve extraordinary things, what's their excuse for not even trying? So they protect their ego by convincing themselves that you're either lying about your goals, deluded about your abilities, or just got lucky. This allows them to maintain their comfortable narrative that extraordinary achievement is either impossible or not worth the effort. Napoleon wrote about this extensively in his exile on St. Helena. He said, "I was never more alone than when I was surrounded by people who claimed to serve me." He realized that most people don't actually want you to succeed. They want you to try just hard enough to make them feel better about their own efforts, but not so hard that you actually surpass them. This is why great men throughout history have often been misunderstood in their own time and celebrated only after death. Vincent van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime. Now here's where this gets really personal for you, because what Napoleon discovered about silent rejection has become an epidemic in our modern world. We're living through what I call the Great Dimming, a systematic suppression of exceptional ambition that's happening right under our noses. You see it everywhere, don't you? People apologizing for their success, entrepreneurs downplaying their achievements, artists hiding their talents, students pretending to be less intelligent than they are. We've created a culture where excellence is seen as a form of aggression against other people's feelings. Napoleon would have been horrified by what we've become. This was a man who literally rewrote the legal code of nations, who built monuments that still stand today, who changed the course of human history, and he did it all while being constantly undermined by people who were supposed to support him. But he never apologized for his greatness. He never dimmed his light to make others comfortable. But you've been trained to do exactly that, haven't you? You've been taught that ambition is selfish, that standing out is arrogant, that wanting more than everyone else is somehow morally wrong. You've internalized the very mechanism that society uses to keep you small. Think about your own life right now. How many times have you held back in meetings because you didn't want to seem like you were showing off? How many opportunities have you passed up because you were afraid of making others feel bad? How many dreams have you quietly abandoned because the people around you convinced you they were unrealistic? This is what I call preemptive self-rejection. You do the work of silent rejection for them. You reject yourself before they even get the chance. You dim your own light because you're afraid of the social consequences of shining too bright. You've become complicit in your own suppression. Napoleon wrote about this phenomenon too, calling it the voluntary chains of the eagle. He observed how some of his most talented generals would limit their own tactical brilliance because they were afraid of overshadowing him. He found it both pathetic and tragic. Here were men capable of military genius, and they were holding themselves back out of social fear. But here's what's really insidious about modern silent rejection. It's disguised as virtue. They don't tell you to be less ambitious, they tell you to be humble. They don't tell you to stop dreaming big, they tell you to be realistic. They don't tell you to fail, they tell you to manage your expectations. And the worst part, you believe them. You think they're looking out for you. You think they're being helpful. You don't realize that humble often means small, that realistic often means mediocre, and that managing expectations often means giving up before you start. Social media has made this worse. Now we have algorithmic silent rejection. Your biggest achievements get 12 likes, but your complaints get hundreds. Your success stories disappear into the void, but your struggles get sympathy and engagement. The algorithm literally trains you to share your failures and hide your victories. Dating apps are another battlefield for silent rejection. You can't be too successful. That's intimidating. You can't be too ambitious, that's off-putting. You can't be too interesting, that's trying too hard. You have to present yourself as just successful enough to be attractive, but not so successful that you make potential partners feel inadequate. Even in professional settings, the rules have changed. You can't be too innovative, that disrupts team harmony. You can't work too hard, that makes others look bad. You can't achieve too much, that's not collaborative. The very qualities that drive exceptional achievement are now labeled as toxic workplace behaviors. Napoleon would have laughed at our modern concepts of work-life balance and collaborative leadership, not because these things don't have value, but because he understood that greatness requires sacrifice, and sacrifice makes other people uncomfortable. They'd rather have you be balanced and mediocre than unbalanced and extraordinary. But here's the question that should keep you awake at night. How many Napoleon Bonapartes are working in cubicles right now, convinced that their dreams are unrealistic? How many potential world changers have been talked out of their ambitions by well-meaning friends and family? How many revolutions have been prevented by the simple phrase, "Maybe you should be more practical"? The tragedy isn't that we're suppressing greatness, it's that we're doing it to ourselves, and we think we're being reasonable. Let me tell you something that Napoleon figured out about human psychology that will change how you see every interaction for the rest of your life. He discovered that there are only two types of people in this world: those who are inspired by greatness and those who are threatened by it. And unfortunately, the second group is much, much larger. You want to know why? Because inspiration requires action. When someone truly inspires you, it creates a debt, a moral obligation to become better yourself. But being threatened by greatness, that's passive, that's comfortable, that lets you stay exactly where you are while feeling justified in your mediocrity. Napoleon saw this pattern everywhere. When he promoted soldiers based on merit rather than birth, the nobility wasn't just annoyed, they were psychologically destabilized. Their entire worldview was built on the idea that success was inherited, not earned. Napoleon's meritocracy didn't just threaten their positions, it threatened their fundamental understanding of how the world worked. This is happening to you every single day. Every time you demonstrate competence that others lack, you're not just showing your skills, you're inadvertently challenging their excuses. Every time you achieve something they said was impossible, you're not just succeeding, you're making their failures look like choices rather than inevitabilities. And that's when the punishment begins. Not official punishment, that would be too obvious. Silent punishment. Kind that slowly erodes your confidence and makes you question your own perceptions. Here's how it works in practice. Let's say you start a business while working a regular job. Your co-workers don't congratulate you, they start making subtle comments about how you're distracted or not fully committed to the team. They don't directly sabotage you, but they stop including you in important conversations. They don't openly oppose you, but they stop supporting you in small, crucial ways. Napoleon called this the death of 1,000 paper cuts. Any one incident seems insignificant. You can't point to any single moment and say, this is discrimination, or this is sabotage. But the cumulative effect is devastating. Your enthusiasm dims, your confidence wavers. You start to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you are being unrealistic. The psychology behind this is brutal in its efficiency. They don't have to convince you that you can't succeed. They just have to make the path to success so socially uncomfortable that you choose to quit. They make greatness feel lonely, and humans are social creatures. We'd rather be accepted and mediocre than isolated and exceptional. But here's what Napoleon understood that most people don't. This social punishment isn't a bug in the system, it's the system working exactly as designed. Society needs most people to stay in their lanes, to accept their positions, to not rock the boat. The silent rejection of greatness is how society maintains stability. Think about it from their perspective. If everyone believed they could achieve extraordinary things, who would do the ordinary jobs? If everyone pursued their biggest dreams, who would be satisfied with regular lives? The system requires most people to give up on greatness, and social punishment is how that happens. This is why Napoleon was so isolated, even at the height of his power. He wasn't just fighting enemy armies, he was fighting the fundamental human tendency to resist change, to punish excellence, to prefer comfortable mediocrity over uncomfortable greatness. And the most insidious part, the people engaging in this silent rejection genuinely believe they're helping you. They think they're protecting you from disappointment. They think they're being realistic. They think they're showing you love by trying to keep you safe from failure. Your own family does this to you. Your parents who tell you to get a stable job instead of pursuing your passion. They're not being cruel, they're being protective. But protection from failure is also protection from greatness. You can't have one without risking the other. Your friends who suggest you tone it down or be more relatable, they're not trying to sabotage you, they're trying to keep you in the group. But group membership often requires individual limitation. You can be part of the pack, or you can be the wolf that leads it, but you rarely get to be both. Even your romantic partners engage in this. They love your ambition in theory, but when your ambition requires sacrifice, time, comfort, security, suddenly they're concerned about your obsession or your work-life balance. They don't want you to fail, but they also don't want to deal with the inconvenience of your success. Napoleon wrote extensively about this loneliness of leadership. He said that the moment you decide to be great, you start losing friends. Not because you change, but because your unchanged commitment to excellence makes everyone else's compromises visible. Your consistency highlights their inconsistency. Your discipline highlights their excuses. This is why most people who start the journey toward greatness turn back. Not because they lack ability, not because they lack opportunity, but because they can't handle the social isolation that comes with refusing to settle. They'd rather be loved and limited than lonely and limitless. But here's the secret Napoleon discovered. Once you accept this loneliness, once you stop trying to make everyone comfortable with your greatness, something amazing happens. You stop wasting energy on managing other people's feelings about your success. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You stop asking for permission to be exceptional. Now we come to the most important part of Napoleon's revelation, the lesson that changed everything for him and can change everything for you. Are you ready for this? Because once you hear it, you can never go back to being small again. Napoleon's final realization was this: the silent rejection you face isn't evidence that you should give up, it's evidence that you're on the right path. The resistance you encounter isn't a sign that you're wrong, it's a sign that you're dangerous to the status quo. The loneliness you feel isn't punishment for your ambition, it's the price of admission to greatness. Think about this for a moment. Every person who ever changed the world faced exactly what you're facing right now. The Wright brothers were called crazy. Edison was considered a failure. Einstein was told he would never amount to anything. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. The pattern is always the same: silent rejection during the journey, loud celebration after the destination. But here's what Napoleon understood, that they didn't teach you in school. You don't wait for the world to accept your greatness, you impose it. You don't ask for permission to be exceptional, you simply become exceptional and let others deal with their discomfort. This doesn't mean being arrogant or dismissive of others. Napoleon, despite his reputation, was incredibly generous to those who served him well and showed genuine talent. But he never apologized for his abilities, never dimmed his brilliance, never pretended to be less than he was, just to make others comfortable. You need to understand something crucial. The people engaging in silent rejection of your greatness are not your equals in ambition, vision, or commitment. They're not operating at your level, so their opinion of your goals is fundamentally irrelevant. Would you take financial advice from someone who's broke? Would you take fitness advice from someone who's out of shape? Then why are you taking life advice from people who've never pursued anything great? Napoleon had a phrase for this: lions do not concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. It sounds harsh, but it's psychologically liberating. Once you truly internalize this, the silent rejection stops hurting. It becomes background noise. It becomes confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. But let me give you some practical strategies that Napoleon developed for dealing with this phenomenon. Because understanding it isn't enough. You need to know how to navigate it. First, build what Napoleon called the inner circle of eagles. These are the few people in your life who are genuinely inspired by greatness rather than threatened by it. They're rare, but they exist. They're usually people who are pursuing their own form of excellence, who understand the sacrifices required, who celebrate your victories without reservation, and support you through defeats without judgment. Second, develop what Napoleon called strategic opacity. You don't have to share your biggest dreams with everyone. You don't owe explanations for your ambitions to people who wouldn't understand them anyway. Save your vision for those who can see it, your passion for those who can feel it, your plans for those who can support them. Third, create what Napoleon called evidence shields. Let your results speak louder than their doubts. Don't argue with people about what's possible. Show them. Don't defend your dreams. Achieve them. The most powerful response to silent rejection is undeniable success. Fourth, embrace what Napoleon called the loneliness of altitude. Accept that the higher you climb, the fewer people will be able to relate to your journey. This isn't tragic, it's natural. Eagles soar alone, not because they're antisocial, but because few creatures can handle that altitude. But here's the most important lesson Napoleon learned, and it's going to transform how you see your entire life. The silent rejection you're experiencing isn't really about you at all. It's about them. It's about their fear of their own potential. It's about their comfort with limitation. It's about their investment in staying small. When someone tries to talk you out of your dreams, they're really trying to talk themselves out of the discomfort of witnessing greatness. When someone suggests you be more realistic, they're really asking you to be more like them. When someone warns you about the risks of aiming high, they're really expressing their own fear of those risks. Understanding this changes everything. Suddenly, their resistance becomes irrelevant. Their doubts become meaningless. Their silent rejection becomes background noise. You realize that you're not fighting against them, you're fighting for something they can't even see. Napoleon's final victory wasn't on any battlefield, it was the moment he stopped caring about the approval of people who were incapable of understanding his vision. That's when he became truly free. That's when he became truly great. And that's your challenge now. Not to convince others of your potential, but to convince yourself. Not to gain their approval, but to exceed their comprehension. Not to fit into their world, but to create your own. The silent rejection you face today is temporary. Your greatness, if you choose to pursue it relentlessly, is permanent. Napoleon knew this. Now you know it too. The question is, what are you going to do about it?